dumb enough to make that kind of a prediction. I mean, Jesus. North was an active duty Marine until he joined the Reagan administration's National Security Council in 1981. One of Reagan's top priorities was organizing and funding the Contras, a guerrilla military force, to overthrow the revolutionary socialist Sandinista government of Nicaragua. But the Contras engaged in extensive, gruesome terrorism against the Nicaraguan civilians. Congress gradually reduced and eliminated appropriations supporting them, leading the Reagan administration to secretly search for money elsewhere. So, according to the report from a later congressional investigation, North was put in charge of this operation, which was dubbed the Enterprise. The Enterprise, functioning largely at the North's direction, had its own airplanes, airfield operatives, ship, secure communication devices, and secret Swiss bank accounts. For 16 months, it served as the secret arm of the NSC staff, carrying out with private and non-appropriated money, and without the accountability or restrictions imposed by law on the CIA, a covert Contra aid program that Congress thought it had prohibited. Congress thought they could have taken care of it, but no. So yeah, that's a report of the Congressional Committee investigating the Iran-Contra affair. This was before Watergate, keep in mind. I'm pretty sure. But the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on Investigative Covert Arms Transactions with Iran. That was the situation there. That's where that little excerpt was from. North enthusiastically looked for cash from wherever he could find it, and led many clandestine schemes later that became known as the Iran-Contra scandal. The Sultan of Brunei donated $10 million, which North Secretary Von Hall accidentally wired to the wrong Swiss bank account, and Saudi Arabia ponied up as well. North pushed what he called a neat idea, selling the U.S. military equipment to Iran, which proceeds with the proceeds passed along to the Contras. So he sold it to the Sandinistas. Sorry, not the Sandinistas. They sold it in Iraq. Sold weapons to Iran, and passed it along to the Contras. Meanwhile, the Contras had a neat idea of their own, facilitating cocaine trafficking through the Central America into the U.S., with a cut going towards supporting their war against the Sandinistas. Some Contras were themselves cocaine traffickers. Others were simply happy to make alliances of convenience with drug cartels. So these are not very good people here. Let's be honest with you. Let's be clear. And all because they wanted to fight socialists. Very similar to what situation we are in today. No, it's nothing like that, but except for the fact that there is some socialist movements in the United States here. So, yeah, there is no evidence North actively wanted to be smuggled, wanted cocaine to be actively smuggled into the U.S. It was simply that he had other priorities. But he was aware of Contras. Was he aware of the Contras drug trafficking? Yes. Did he try to shield one of his cocaine traffickers from consequences from other branches of the U.S. government? Yes. Did he work with a no drug lord? Yes. It's pretty simple. So let's see. All in all, North's connections to drug trafficking were so egregious that in 1989 he was banned from entering Nicaragua's neighbor Costa Rica by Oscar Arias, the country's president and 1987 recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. This may seem shocking to the easily shocked, but it's all documented in various government investigations. All you need to learn about it is curiosity and an internet connection. For instance, here's a screenshot from the CIA's website about the Nicaraguan Revolutionary Democratic Alliance, or its or ADRAN by its Spanish acronym, which is later folded into the Contras. So that's how it fell there. So here's the quote. In September 1981, a report to headquarters relaying information obtained from an asset that stated that ADRAN leadership had made a decision to engage in drug smuggling to the United States in order to finance its anti-Sandinista operation. Interesting. Sounds familiar. Yeah. the full extent of North's complicity in cocaine trafficking will never be known. When the Iran-Contra scandal broke in 1986, he ordered Hall, his secretary, to destroy so many documents the shredder malfunctioned, and she asked White House maintenance to come and fix it. Moreover, when North removed from his National Security Council job, when North was removed from his NSC job, he took with him 2,848 pages of daily notes, which legally belonged to the federal government. By the time congressional investigation by the time a congressional investigation was finally able to examine the notes, North and his lawyers had redacted huge amount of information. Nonetheless, 543 pages mentioned drugs or drug trafficking. The probe finding in many of these cases, material in the notebooks adjacent to the narcotic references have been deleted. But despite North's cover-up, what we do know for sure is incredibly damning. Perhaps most significantly, according to North's own notes, that he met with Panama's then dictator Manuel Noriega in London in September 1986 to collaborate on a plan for Noriega to support the Contras in return for American money and arms. So they discussed sabotaging a Nicaraguan airport and oil refinery, as well as creating a program to train Contra and Afghan Mujahideen commandos in Panama with Israeli help. It's not completely clear, but North appears to have written that Rabin, i.e. Yitzhak Rabin, who was then Israel's Minister of Defense, approved of the situation. North was clearly enthusiastic about the potential partnership with the Noriega. In an earlier email selling the proposal to one of his superiors, he wrote that we might have available a very effective, very secure means of doing some of the things which must be done if the Nicaragua project is going to succeed. I believe we could make the appropriate arrangements with reasonable OPSEC and deniability. But of course, Noriega was himself a powerful drug trafficker. Knowing this did not require a top-secret clearance. It was published on the front page of the New York Times 3 months before North met with him. According to the Times article, White House official said the most significant drug running in Panama is being directed by General Noriega. So this is the headline of the New York Times article. U.S. aides also assert Noriega helped leftist rebels in Colombia. That's by Seymour Hersh, special to the New York Times, saying, quote, an army... let's see, the Army Commander of Panama, a country vital to the United States' interest in Latin America, is extensively involved in illicit money laundering and drug activities that has provided Latin American guerrilla group with arms, according to evidence collected by American intelligence agencies. So, North went to great lengths to protect an ally that was a key participant in what the Justice Department called the most significant case of narco-terrorism ever discovered. In 1984, Jose Bueso Rosa, a Honduran general, plotted with several others to assassinate the president of Honduras. They planned to fund the hit with the proceeds from selling 760 pounds of cocaine in the U.S. The FBI, however, had participants under surveillance, intercepted the shipment when it was arrived in a small airfield in Florida, and arrested everyone involved. But Bueso had played a key role in Honduran support for the Contras, so North went to work to get him off as lightly as possible. Bueso himself had not been charged with drug trafficking, but wiretaps made it obvious he had participated in part of the project. So, he pretty much helped someone accused of the biggest narco-terrorism ever uncovered. Some of the biggest narco-terrorism ever uncovered, helped him get off pretty much scot-free. Or as much as he could. So, in the email, North explained his plans to, quote, cabal quietly, unquote, with other Reagan administration officials to look at options, pardon, clemency, deportation, reduced sentence, etc. Eventually, North planned to have the case's judge informed in camera, that is, secretly, about our equities in the matter, in order to push for leniency. Then, North wrote, it would be necessary to quietly brief Bueso so he wouldn't start singing songs nobody wants to hear. Every night he has the show called War Stories. And, I mean, I think those would be some pretty interesting war stories to tell for a show. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he actually has a show on Fox Business. It's called War Stories with Oliver North. And he's, like, a huge terrorist. So, yeah, that's got to be a pretty damn entertaining show. I will say that for him. I mean, if he tells some of these stories about how he was with the U.S. government working behind the backs of most of it to sell money to sell arms to terrorists. What was it? He worked with cocaine traffickers to arm terrorists. So he worked with Honduras to arm Sandinistas. That ain't very good. He keep in mind, this guy's now going to be president of the NRA. Yeah, I mean, that's worth joking over. Yeah, North didn't get everything he wanted, but he did succeed in having transferred Boyso transferred to a club-fed minimum security prison. Boyso was released on parole after 40 months. There are also numerous documented examples of North being informed that members of the Contras were involved in drug trafficking with no signs North took any action. For instance, after a meeting with the key assistant, North wrote in his notebook about a plane being used by the border of the brother of a top Contra leader to ferry supplies from the U.S. to Central America. Honduran D6, which is being used for runs out of New Orleans, North jotted down, is probably being used for drug runs into U.S. So he knew about it. He pretty much knew about it. North testified in front of Congress that he passed this information along to the DEA. When later questioned by the Washington Post, the DEA, the State Department, and the U.S. Customs Service all stated that there was no evidence North said anything about that matter to them. So there is that. Yeah, and this guy, again, there's a long list of pretty bad stuff he's done, and it ain't good. It ain't good. So, yeah, there is that. Now, time to my favorite story of the day. Excuse me. We'll take a look at the DC famous Politico Newsletter by the name of Playbook. All right, so DC famous Playbook. It went off. It did not hold back. And so here it is. This is the excerpt that we want to show for you. This is something tweeted out by the reporter who actually wrote it. Anna Palmer and Jake Sherman write this DC famous newsletter every single day. And here's how it starts. Yes! In all caps and bolded. Guys like Michael Cohen routinely get paid amounts like $1.2 million to offer insights about their former boss or current boss. It's crazy. But many readers of this newsletter would not have their McMansion in McLean, their BMW, their membership at Army Navy, second homes in Delaware, cigar lockers, and endless glasses of Pinot Noir at BLT Steak and Tosca if that stuff didn't happen. Newsflash. Hey, it's the name of the show. $1.2 million is not even a rounding error for massive corporations. Smart companies route these deals through law firms, i.e., what Trump did. A scintilla of information that gives a company an edge. A price tag would be completely worth it for a member of the Hill leadership, and intel on Trump is worth more than that. It seems like Cohen offered squat. See, so she's probably about to like, oh, poor AT&T. They got ripped off. $600,000 was a pretty big investment by AT&T. They got ripped off. That's awful. Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, this is pretty much what they're saying here. And this, I love the tweet here. Reality check for all those outrage about, for all the outrage of the Michael Cohen money in on Trump. Jake Sherman and I have some truth talk in today's playbook. I mean, oh, you didn't realize your country is impossibly corrupt in ways likely to entrenched to ever fully overthrow? Oh, bless your heart. Not everyone can be a playbook insider, sponsored by BP. Yeah, so it's quite sad, frankly. This is the kind of stuff they do every day, and they know their readers. Many readers of this newsletter would not have their McMansion in McLean, their BMW, their membership at Army Navy, second home in Delaware, cigar lockers, and endless glasses of Pinot Noir at BLT Steak and Tosca if that stuff didn't happen. This is literally the newsletter embodiment of the swamp. It's literally that. So to be fair, it's not just Playbook